Hey Faisal, you know
hmm
what the problem is of having a difficult ex?
Nope.
You get screwed, but you're not having sex.
Too right, you do. How painful is that?
Yeah, somebody pass the Vaseline.
Do you ever wonder, why do I always seem to give so much more than I get? All I want is to be appreciated and loved. Is that asking too much? Why do all the jerks get the hot girls while I get stuck in the friend zone? When will it ever be my turn? If this sounds like you, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Nice Guy Show. This is the podcast that asks the question, how do I break free from the nice guy syndrome so I never have to come in last again? Now here are your hosts, Faisal Coker and Chuck Chapman.
What's up, guys? I'm Chuck Chapman. I'm here with my co-host Faisal Coker, and today we're going to talk about what do you do if you have a difficult ex? I mean, probably one of the things that most nice guys who are married or who have exes, especially if they've got children, really struggle with is how do you have a relationship after the divorce, especially if she's difficult to get along with. So that's our topic for today. Faisal, what's your experience?
So, after my divorce, I was annoyed. I was angry. I was hurt. I was devastated. And there was a part of me that felt so in pain. It was a horrible time. One of my lowest point that I wanted to take revenge. I was like, how
Mm,
dare you? I was in this deep victim energy. It's like, how dare you? You destroy our family, you wreck our, everything that we've built together. And I was really mad. I was really angry at this. And I remember, I just felt this vengeance and I just felt this feelings inside of me. And I know a lot of guys, some of you guys can relate to this because I've had,
mm,
guys I've worked with who felt the same thing as well. But what happens is after time, emotions don't last, and this one, passed away. I was still angry. There was still a lot of anger and resentment inside of me. But what I decided to do was, to focus on the bigger picture. I really
mm,
had to focus on the picture because I wanted to be better rather than being bitter. So I decided, there was a decision of like, okay, this is going to be a really good gift for me.
mm,
And it didn't feel like it, but I thought, okay, how can I show up? This is my moment. And I remember the inner talk I had because I would before that moment, I was more negative. I wasn't
mhm,
aware, self-aware. I was into psychology. But that moment was my awakening. As I say, the universe has shaken you to awaken you. And that
mm.
was my moment. And so I decided it's my opportunity. This is the time now to become a good man, better man, and also become a better dad. So that was
Mhm.
my experience of it, and it wasn't easy. I could tell you that. So how about you, Chuck? I know
Yeah,
you've gone through a breakup too as well.
yeah,
What was that
yeah.
like?
Yeah, well, similarly, I mean, again, I think my divorce kind of blindsided me in a way, and I also was really angry and upset. Went through those same feelings and emotions, and same thing of like wanting to have revenge, wanting payback. I was hurting, and I wanted her to hurt in the same way that I was hurting. And so at the very beginning, I was probably the difficult ex. I was hurt. Um, would drag my feet on anything. Didn't feel like I wanted to give her any amount of room. I wanted her to hurt, and I had to go through a very similar process. Like you said, those emotions, they don't last forever. As I went through my own process of recovery and started working more on myself, uh, the relationship with my ex is great. I mean, couldn't ask for a better ex, really. And so, but it didn't happen overnight. It took us, I don't know, a good better part of a couple of years, I think, to kind of get to that place where we weren't afraid of each other, and we could kind of we learned to trust each other a little bit more and realize, because we have a daughter with special needs, that what we both really wanted was the best for her. And to get her out of the middle of our pain and to try to
Yeah.
protect her. And so that was really kind of my experience with it too. And like I said, I have a really great relationship with her. But I also know a lot of guys who I also work with who do not have reasonable exes, who are in relationships with their ex, and it's hostile. It's you know there's no getting along, and oftentimes it's because there's kids in the middle of it. And I think that's the thing of like, when you have a breakup and you're going through those difficult times, if you have children together, it kind of keeps you stuck in having to
It
work with
does.
each other.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
if you're
You're
both
like
in
married for
pain,
life then, aren't yeah, you're
yeah,
like stuck.
yeah, you're
You're
kind of
stuck together, and
you're no longer man and wife, but you're still mom and dad. You have
yeah, and
to,
you still. I'm like, well, I have to still deal with that situation. So you have
yeah,
to, isn't it important to think that if you do have kids, you probably can see that person for the rest of their life. So
yeah, yeah,
until the kids are older.
yeah.
So
Well,
you mentioned
even
about
then, I think, you know.
yeah, and you mentioned about like working with guys who've had
Mhm.
horror stories. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories as well. I had a
Yeah.
friend who was very close to me, and he went through hell.
Mm.
And he went through several years of this. It's really interesting because when I first saw them, I thought, man, they two are made for each other.
Mm.
I thought, wow. And I remember, going to his stag do, and it was such good fun. I
Mm.
was so happy. I went to the wedding as well, and he had a wedding here, and had a wedding in India as well. I thought, wow, these guys are really meant for each other.
Mm.
And they, bought a really nice house together. Then they had kids together. I thought, wow, he's living the dream. He had good wealth.
Right.
Everything was amazing. Then, and then over time, we kind of lost contact. And then I kind of bumped into him. And I said, "Hey, how are things?" And I hadn't seen him for years. And he said, "Horrible." And he looked exhausted and tired. I, didn't want to really say, "Hey, mate, what's wrong with you? You look like you've just been hit by a train."
Mm.
But and he said, "I've been through hell." And then he told me that his wife at some point they just clashed a lot. They fought a lot, and then she reported him to the police for sexually abusing their young kids.
Mm.
And
Mm.
he was devastated. He goes, "How?" He goes, "I love my kids." He goes, "There is no way I would do anything like that." And then by default, he's guilty or not guilty, but by default he's taken in and questioned by
Sure.
police, and then social services, everything, the government, everything's involved.
Yeah.
And then it's a case of him trying to prove his innocence because she
Mm.
just made a claim, and as soon as she made a claim, that's it. He's in the guilt or in the bad place now. And what happened was, it took years for him to start to fight this, and it was a fight, and it cost a lot of money. They lost their house. He lost the house. He lost his wealth. He lost his savings, and they're
Mm.
just back and forth, trying to prove that. Eventually, they went through. I don't know why it took so long, but they had some psychological reports on her and the kids just to make sure that
Yeah.
what's really going on. Luckily, they found that there was no sexual abuse,
Mm.
and what they did find was she had some real severe psychological disorders, some issues, right? And
Yeah.
that was the turning point. That was like, and he had been protesting his innocence for a long time, and it says, look, it finally came to light, and there was all these evidence of text messages, the way she voiced, and all the messages, and how she communicated with her friends, and all those evidence
Mm.
mounted up, and it didn't make sense. And then the psychologist, they were all involved, then found out, yeah, she was fabricating a lot of it. There was some normal husband and wife challenges,
Mm.
but the serious accusations were all fabricated, all made up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
and it took years of him. I saw him,
Mhm.
and he had more gray hair than I did. Right? Don't know if that's possible, but he looked old, tired, and exhausted. And when I saw him, he says, "Look, I'm just so tired." He said, "I just
Yeah.
don't have any energy anymore." And he goes, "I just been keep fighting it." And he says, "I didn't know if I was going to be around anymore," because he just felt
Uh,
like I just wanted to take my life, but he just did it for the
yeah.
kids.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, those are the kind of stories I hear too. There's one guy who kind of comes to mind, somebody I've worked with in the past. He had a similar kind of ordeal. He had actually full custody of his daughter, and then was accused of some abuse, and daughter taken away. He was exonerated, and yet his ex still got full custody. And because she had full custody, she was able to um, make it so that he hasn't seen her in a number of years, and um, and it's a really difficult thing because he loves his daughter, he cherishes her, and yet he's not allowed to see her, and so he's angry and upset and
Mm.
wants to lash out, and unfortunately, it's kind of almost like the last thing you should do. Um, you know, and I
Yeah.
think that kind of segues into kind of like, let's talk about what can guys do if they find themselves in a situation where they have a really difficult ex.
All right. Yeah, let's go through them. So we've got some 5 tips for you, 5 things that you can do. Navigating and dealing with difficult exes. And the first one we got on the list is keep your cool. I It's easy said than done, right? I
Right.
know you're going to be angry at the system. You're going to be angry at the legal system. There's going to be a lot of anger that's going
Mm-hmm.
to come up for you. And all I know is the best decisions are not made when you are in emotional
Mm-hmm.
high, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So one thing is keep your masculine frame, keep your cool, right? And I just what I do is I picture some of my idols. I really admire when they say cool, is to say, okay, what would someone like James Bond, when he's in, he's my childhood hero. And
Uh,
he faces all the danger and everything, and he's got a gun pointed at him, and he just keeps cool. A new one is Peaky Blinders. If you've seen Peaky Blinders, Tommy Shelby,
uh-huh.
uh, he's so stoic, uses a few words, very stoic body language, and it's one of the things on the internet as well. He's just like so admired for his stoicism as well. So this
Mm-hmm.
is where, especially for nice guys, because I'm pretty emotional, I flip. It just takes a spark, and I'm like, "Rah!" Like this as well. I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
hot-headed. So one of the lessons I have to keep remembering is to keep my cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be really hard because
So hard.
anger is a reaction to being hurt, and when you're hurt, when you feel like there's this injustice, and you feel like things aren't fair, you're not being treated fair, you're being accused unjustly, those kind of things, those are all going to provoke that pain, and you're going to react and respond with that fight. I mean, nothing provokes my anger, I think, more than being unjustly accused of something.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so when you've got children involved, when you've got finances involved, all those kind of things, that's the one thing that's really, really difficult to do, is to keep your nervous system in check and to maintain that frame.
Mm.
That part of you that you can be, thunder inside, but on the outside, just you can't show can't really show any emotion. You have to just keep your cool.
Yeah, yeah. So keep it cool on the negotiating table, but it's okay to feel any
Right.
emotion.
And
we
that's why I
we,
think
we
you
will
need
feel,
guys.
but there's a time and a place. I don't always get it right. I just put my hand up and say,
Yeah.
I've been very emotional at the table, very emotional with my partners.
Hmm.
I've been very emotional for that. So I know this. Again, it's a practice.
Yeah.
I don't get this 100% time right. I flip.
Yeah.
So, but it's okay to feel emotions. What the mature thing to do, or what the guiding thing to do. That's why having a men's group or
Hmm.
support around you is they help you to channel it so then you can be more constructive, because what's happening is you're spending a lot of time in your emotional brain, your amygdala brain, and
Hmm.
your prefrontal cortex, your rational thinking brain, it's offline.
Yeah.
And that's where the cool, calm, and rational decisions
Yeah.
are made.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. It's practicing keeping your nervous system in check, and I think one of the another way to really do that, I think, are with the masculine embodiment practices, the breathing, the even yoga. Those kind of things can help you um, rewire your nervous system so that you're not acting. You've got a channel for that anger, and
Yeah.
so that that rather than just boiling underneath, there's a place for it to go,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Absolutely.
that's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I did a lot, especially when I was going through the early stages of my divorce. I walked a lot.
Mm.
I just took myself out, looked far away, because a lot of guys, when you're thinking, you look at the floor. So don't
Yeah.
look at the floor, because it just makes your thinking worse. So what I
Mm.
did was just look far away. I listened to a lot of motivational stuff, and I just
Hmm.
kept walking and walking and walking. I spent hours, a day
Mm.
just walking, because it says that if you walk over 2 hours of walking, helps your brain to then calm down. So I
Mm.
remember some research on that. So that's number
Wow.
two.
Wow.
So that's number one.
Number
Keep you
number one.
cool.
Yeah. Number
Yeah.
two
So
is
number one.
stop
So
being a
what's number two?
narcissist.
Okay, what does that
Stop.
mean?
Yeah. It's not all about you, man. you know, um, we've got to learn to focus on the bigger picture, you know, rather than being needy and making it all about you and being a victim and, um, you know, ruminating about how unfair this is. You have to look at the bigger picture. This is a marathon, not a sprint, especially if you've got
Yeah.
kids involved. I think that's the thing that happens is, when you go through a breakup, you're no longer husband and wife, but you're still mom and dad, you know,
Mm,
and
so true.
you have to stop making it all about you and make it about your kids, or make it about keeping your nervous system in check.
Yeah.
When it's all about you, you're being a narcissist. And one of the things I always say is, when you're upset, when you're suffering, is when you're arguing with reality. She shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be
Yes.
that way. The kids shouldn't act this way. They should be doing this. And whenever I'm doing that and I'm having that cognitive distortion of the shoulds, I am suffering, And the reality is that sometimes, yeah, she's angry and hurt. So she should be acting that way. And you should be the bigger man. The So I think that stopping making it all about you, because when we're in
Yeah.
pain, we want to make it all about us.
Of
Um,
course. Of course. That's what
and
narcissism,
be
isn't it? Like emotions. You're so self-absorbed, and it's all about me.
right,
How I
right,
feel. What's my feelings about it?
right.
And
I've
I've been
noticed
there
that
when
when
you're. God.
I've noticed that when I am focused on what my partner is doing or what my ex-partner is doing that they shouldn't be doing or what they should be doing, that's when I
Yes.
am upset. When I
Mm,
am able to get out of my ego and more into a place of service, what can I do to serve the people around me? What can I do to make um, peace, in this situation, that I'm coming from a place of love rather than a place of hurt and anger.
yeah. Yeah. And that's when we start to weaponize kids as well, because we're so
Yeah.
emotionally, uh, you know, um, entangled in our emotions that we can't see the purposeful thing, the thing that we need to do, that serves the bigger picture rather than just serving our own needs. Because what we're trying to do effectively is trying to get rid of our pain by
Yeah.
utilizing whatever's around, our kids, our people. I put my hands up as well. There are moments when I did fall into this as well. There were moments where I thought, I'm really angry. I want to get some revenge, and
Mm-hmm.
I will do this, or I'll be difficult, or I'll
Mm-hmm.
put some obstacles in the way. And then I thought, wow, I'm just putting obstacles in the way for the bigger picture. And I like what you just said about when we have difficult time with reality. It should be this
Mhm.
way. The law should be this way, and the system
Yeah.
should be this way. And it's such a futile kind of like energy, spending your energy on such things that you can't change. So focus on the things that you can change.
Focus on
And
things you
it's,
can. Yeah.
again, I have to say, it's easy said than done. This is where support really comes in. So, which goes on to number 3.
Yeah. What's number
Yeah,
3?
be understanding. So be understanding and get the help, because you'll be too emotional and deep in it, right?
Mm.
And that's why, because sometimes it's very hard to get over yourself and to understand and see their picture as well, and what they went through. Because when guys go through a divorce, it's like, oh, this has happened to me. Or when she goes through a divorce, like, men are narcissists and they're this and
Mhm.
that. We're so absorbed in ourselves that we forget to see actually what was it like on their side. I put my hands up. This is a skill I really had to learn. I was very much seeing things logically and not empathetically. So there was moments where I had to really stop and develop this skill and say, okay, what would that person be experienced? What would they see? How would it be for
Mhm.
them? And again, it's a practice as well. And get support, because I was lucky to have, I seeked support, I seeked help. And I know most nice guys, they are afraid to ask. They just try to do everything themselves. And I was lucky. I had good family around me, good friends around me. I had a really amazing sister who grounds. She helped me to ground myself. She helped me to see different sides. And she was very fair on both of us as well.
Mm.
And that was a real, I'd say, pivotal, not pivotal, but it's a real important aspect of my healing and growth
Mhm.
as well. So having someone strong, someone right on your side, is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So let's look at number 4.
So
Number 4 is setting boundaries, having non-negotiated things that you won't negotiate on, and being willing to walk away. One of the things that Robert Glover says about boundaries, and I memorized this because it's so important, your boundaries are only as good as your willingness and your ability to remove yourself from the situation.
mm,
Uh, You have to have these 2 things. You have to have a willingness and you have to have the ability to walk away in the situation. So the first thing is you have to be willing to do it.
yeah,
Um, and sometimes we'll make threats or whatever like that. We have no intention of following through on. That's not having the willingness to be able to set that intention, and then the ability. Like if you're you're in a car with somebody and they're arguing with you, you can't get out of the car. You don't have the ability in that moment to get out of the car, but you have to have the ability. You have to have a place where you can remove yourself from. And so if there are
that's why we need
things
ejector seats.
you need to check
Yeah,
your seats, right? Yeah.
right. I had enough of you,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Kitten in
yeah.
Knight Rider.
Right. Well, in my book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, the 30-Day Recovery Journal, shameless plug, um, rules 16, 17, and 18 are my favorite rules, which are never let anybody treat you badly, no one ever, right? Um, uh, uh, I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. Don't wait around for things to change.
I love
Like
that one.
things aren't necessarily going to change. And then don't be a victim. Don't play the victim. And learning to set boundaries, I think, is a really crucial part of being in a relationship with anybody.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know?
Being
Did
able
you
to
know
say it's
some?
not okay.
Yeah, and do you know what the interesting thing is? There are some people I speak to who say, "What's a boundary? Never heard of that."
Right.
I remember even Dr. Glover talking about this. Is boundaries? I've never heard of that. So boundary is just like a line of a set of lines or set of rules that you have that say, "Hey, I draw a line here. This is the rule. This is how to conduct ourselves within this,
Yeah.
and it's non-negotiable." So, for example, I might have a boundary saying, like, I have like small boundaries around the house. So one of my
Hmm.
boundaries is, no phone after 10 p.m. And that's for
Hmm.
myself, and for
Hmm.
everybody else in the house. That's like a small boundary. Don't use bad words or swear. I do
Hmm.
swear, but but
Yeah.
there are some boundaries that you set, some rules up, and say, hey, these are the lines that you don't cross. So it's just
Yeah.
drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is the line, don't cross this. If you cross it, there's consequences for it.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, my wife and I have a number of boundaries that we use within the times when things get heated. And these are non-negotiables. We've talked about these things outside of, in the heat of the moment, you know.
Yeah.
So no swearing, no name calling, um, no shaming, right? No yelling, okay, so no raising of the voice, and no throwing out the D word, the threat, divorce, like,
Oh,
or, that kind of thing. So no threatening. And they're really helpful to have those established because
yeah.
we'll get, you kind of get to that point sometimes where you're just so flooded. And so the boundary of removing myself from the situation is actually helps us get back centered, to get out of that space, to let those chemicals process through your body, your prefrontal cortex to come back online so that you can go back and have a rational discussion. When you're flooded, you can't, right? And that's the problem is a lot of times especially when we're hurt, you get flooded really easily. We can't think straight. We're saying things that we don't really mean. And then afterwards, we regret those things. So
Yeah.
the boundary is also to help you maintain your own sense of cool and composure going back up to number one.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
got to have non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Speaking
And
of negotiation, oh, go ahead.
yeah, speaking of negotiation, what's number 5? So number 5 is
Yeah.
learn to negotiate. Okay, negotiation skills are vital, and I had to say this is something that I've not always been good at negotiating. And what I found was and I find this a lot in couples. And here's my experience as well. Women tend to articulate way better than me. They are able to communicate. They're better communicators than I am. So when I'm in the moment of negotiating or like having a conversation, negotiation, I feel sometimes really dumb, really stupid. I feel like incompetent because they're able to articulate and say things. And I remember we had in my men's group, we had a, a lawyer come into a group and do a talk,
Hmm.
and she helps a lot of men navigate
Hmm.
the divorce in the court system. And she said something really interesting. She said one of the things that men really need to work on is being able to articulate.
Hmm.
And she said a lot of women have the advantage. They're able to communicate their emotions. And because they're able to communicate their emotions and their pain, they're able to get more sympathy, more empathy,
Hmm.
and be able to win people on their side because they
Hmm.
have that part. Whereas the guys are very logical and they're not be able to communicate and not be able to say everything. They're left sitting there going, well, this is what I meant to say. This is what I meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I have to say to guys is really start learning psychology, really get good at psychology, really get good at negotiating, really get good at
Yeah.
arguing your point,
Hmm.
making a
Hmm.
point. Um,
Hmm.
and one of the things I say to guys is learn to write, learn to
Hmm.
articulate. Just don't
Yeah.
just have in your head. But
Yeah.
this skill and ability will give you a lot more confidence and not being pushed around in relationships, not being like a doormat.
And it'll give you strategies. I think that's the thing too.
Yeah.
If you're untrained, if you don't have strategies and you walk into the battlefield, you might get your ass handed to you. One of the what- guys I really like to follow is Chris Voss, who wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. The book is excellent. He has a master class. I've watched his master class. I've read the book. I
Mm,
studied his work. So Chris Voss is a former FBI hostage negotiator, and his books and his classes are all about negotiation. And he's got some really great simple things that you can kind of keep in your back pocket. One of the things that he talks about that I really love is it's called, empathetic mirroring. So
Mm.
all you're doing is you're saying back to the person, so when, she comes out, she says, I want this, this, and this. You just say, you want this, and this, and then you hold your frame, and then she'll go on and explain, yeah, I want it because of this, and this, and you say, oh, sounds like you want it because of this, and this. And what happens is, because as humans, the number of thing we want is to be heard and understood. When somebody's mirroring back to you in an empathetic way, you start to feel heard and understood, your defenses go down, and then you can really find a solution that works for both of you. And that's just one little thing that he talks about in his
Yeah.
list of ways to negotiate. But I find that so helpful for myself to just mirror back, especially when I'm starting to feel that sense of floodedness, when I'm starting to feel myself upset.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
I like that. I
And
like that when you're feeling flooded and upset. Just
yeah,
see what I just did there?
I like that. Yeah. So when you're feeling flooded and upset, yes, I'm feeling flooded
Yeah.
and upset.
You know,
Okay.
yeah, I wonder how it works when, I mean, I have guys I work with and say, "Oh, my ex is such a narcissist. She won't ever apologize. She never says sorry. She never wants to have a look at herself. She just wants to blame the outside world." He says, "I try everything. It doesn't work as well." So I wonder if Chris Voss has got a book on that one as well, dealing with women and men who don't listen. And also, he's got a very hot wife as well. If you've seen that, yeah,
Is it?
she's very young, very.
Okay.
Damn,
He
she's
probably
so. I mean, you
negotiated
look at them
that,
going, "How?" Yeah, I was like, "How on earth did his negotiation skill must be off the roof?" So, good
Yeah,
work on
that.
that one.
And he's got some money, and
Fame and
but yeah, right. All that good
FBI
stuff.
badge as well. I mean, that's
Yeah,
all you need, guys. Just pull out a
yeah.
badge
A
when you go
badge,
out and
flash the
approach
badge.
women.
Yeah. So those
So,
are our
Chuck,
5 tips.
yeah.
Keep it
So
cool.
let's go.
Don't be a narcissist. Be understanding. Set boundaries. Learn to negotiate.
Brilliant. I love those. Just simple
Here's a
ones.
bonus.
What's that?
The bonus. The bonus is don't do it
Yeah.
alone.
Yes. That's a really, really poignant one as well. Don't do things alone. Actually, my son, we were watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's series as well,
Oh,
and my son said, "Yeah, it's amazing." And my son said, he said something really, poignant as well. He said, "Dad, there is no such thing as a self-made millionaire." I said, "Yes, there is." He said, "Nope." He said, "If you think about it, all these successful people have a team." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, there is no such thing as a self-made. Success requires a team, people to support you." And I had an amazing team around me, which helped me to overcome, some of the challenges. And if you don't have a team, they're the kind of men and women who die alone, miserable,
yeah.
in pain, hating and regretting, and being what I call hateful and vengeful of the world. Don't be one of those people.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so, guys, thank you so much for this. So, Chuck,
Yeah.
next episode, right? I like this exciting one because you came up with this really cool idea. So, what's the next one?
Yeah. The next episode is called No More Mr. Nice Dad. How do you
Yeah.
be a dad but not a pushover, a doormat? How do you negotiate with your kids? What do you do in that situation? I mean, especially, guys that are starting over maybe and having to be single dads, or not even single dads, but guys that are in a relationship. Being
Yeah.
a dad, you can relate to this, I'm sure. Being a dad is probably the one of the most wonderful, beautiful, transformative experiences I've ever had. And it's also one of the most difficult, painful. It brings up all of my shit.
Oh
And
my.
being a dad is such a vital, important part of someone's development, And so how do you not be a nice dad is what we're going to talk
Yeah.
about. And we may even turn this into a little bit of a series, I think. We were talking about that off camera here, was that maybe this is a a topic that we can do a few segments on. So tune in for that as we sort of percolate on that idea. And if you're a dad and you're a nice guy, then there's a good chance you're a nice dad.
Absolutely, I love this topic. Can't wait to delve into this, learn from other dads as well, and share some of the nice guy traits and how that shows up. Because I've got a lot to say on this and a lot to learn on this as well. All right, gentlemen,
Yeah.
thank you for being at the Nice Guy Show. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Please remember to like, share this as well, and spread the word, because we're here to make a big difference to all the nice guys out there and to recover to become the integrated man that women love, admire, and respect. And so do your fellow men. Gentlemen, take care and see you on the next one.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show, the podcast that helps nice guys move past their insecurities and fears into the fullness of their masculine strength and confidence. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and check out the website niceguyshow.com for more information on how to connect with Chuck and Faisal. Until next time, keep living your best life.